Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. How are y'all doing on this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Wednesday? Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thanks so much for hopping on and spending a little bit of your afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world, spending some time with me. I greatly appreciate it. We are going to be getting into it on this Money Wednesday. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Thanks so much for showing up and spending some time with me on this Money Wednesday because we're going to be talking about why your coaching business isn't making money. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Let me know if you can hear me and see me okay. Give me a thumbs up or let me know in the chat if you can see and hear me okay. The only thing worse, no, there's nothing worse than going live and having a whole live conversation and nobody can hear you or see you okay. It has happened to me before. Welcome back. Welcome back. We're going to be talking about why your coaching business isn't making money. I'm going to be giving you 3 specific revenue blockers as to why your coaching business is not making money. And I'm not just going to give you the problem. I'm going to give you the solution to solve the problem as well. So happy Wednesday. Happy April Fool's Day. Welcome to April, new month, new quarter. And we are just going to be getting into this thing. All right, let's get to it. So, if your coaching business is not making money yet, I want to tell you something that most coaches in this space will not say. And that is, it's probably not your fault. Well, not entirely your fault because the advice most aspiring coaches get about how to build a coaching business is missing something critical. Advice tells you what to build, but it doesn't tell you why it's not selling. So you can get all the information about how to build a coaching offer, what exactly to build when you're building a coaching offer, but where's the advice that's telling you why your offer isn't selling? And those are 2 completely different conversations. And today we're having the one that nobody really talks about. We're going to be talking about why your offer isn't selling. Welcome back to Nick at Noon. My name is Nick Scott, and I'm the founder and CEO of Her Income Edit. And Her Income Edit is an online education platform that's designed to help professional women turn their existing skills into sustainable online businesses without quitting their 9 to 5, without the hustle, without the burnout, and without the overwhelm. Today, around here, it is Money Wednesday, and we are ringing in the new quarter and the new month with an honest conversation that I think a lot of you that are watching live and watching the replay, a lot of you may have been waiting for someone to have this conversation. And that is, why isn't your coaching business making any money yet? And I don't want to just talk about the surface, superficial level answer. I want to get deep and talk about what the real answer is. And before we get into it, if you have any questions as you're watching either live or the replay, just drop them in the comments or in the chat and I will get to them. Also, if you haven't already, go get your notebook and your pen or whatever it is that you take notes on because we are about to get into it. Are you ready? If you're ready, drop ready in the chat. Thanks for joining on YouTube. So I want to start off by talking about why this conversation is so hard for so many of us to have in the coaching space, because I think the difficulty is intentional. I think it's intentional because the online business world, it literally profits from your belief that the problem is always something that you haven't learned yet. So, for example, You might believe that you're not making money because you need a better content strategy, or you're not making money because you need a stronger niche, or because you need a more sophisticated funnel, or maybe you believe you need to take another course, or you need to get another certification, or you need another framework. And so buying behavior and buying psychology would say, if these are your beliefs, you buy the next thing, and then you buy the next thing after that, and the next thing after that. Am I right? And so you keep learning and learning and learning while your income stays exactly the same. As a matter of fact, it's probably getting lower and lessening because you're buying the next thing and the next thing and the next thing after that. And the real reason most coaching businesses aren't making money, it has nothing to do with a knowledge gap. It has nothing to do with the knowledge gap, but it has everything to do with three specific fixable revenue blockers that most coaches never address because nobody calls them out for what it is. But I'm going to do that for you here today. I am going to name them, I'm going to call them out, and I'm going to put them out here for you very directly, very honestly. Is that okay with you? And I'm going to be real honest about what it takes to move past each one of these revenue blockers, right? Because I never want to just leave you with the diagnosis. I also want to give you a solution to help you move forward. And I'm going to do this not because this conversation is comfortable, because it's not. It is a very uncomfortable conversation, but I'm doing this because it's one of these conversations that I believe creates real change. It creates real change in this industry. It creates real change for your business. And I believe in transparency and having real conversations. That's what Nick at Noon is all about. So, if you're taking notes, we're going to jump right into it, right off the top, and talk about what this first revenue blocker is, because this is the one that I see most often, and it's the one that has the most downstream consequences. And that is, your offer is not clear enough to sell. We talk a lot about clarity around here because I think it is, like I always say, the second most important thing for you to figure out when you decide that you want to start an online business. And the first one of those is why. And clarity is a very close second to your why. And I want to be specific about what I mean by that, because I think a lot of coaches believe they have a clear offer when what they actually have is a clear description of what they do. And those are not the same thing. A clear offer and a clear description about what you do, they're not the same thing. So let me give you a few examples of what I mean. A description of what you do, it sounds like this. It sounds like, I help women with career transitions, or I coach people on work life balance, or I support professionals who are feeling stuck, or I work with women on mindset and business. So that is a description of what you do. I help women create online businesses. That is a description of what I do. A clear offer sounds like this. Now, I want you to really hear the difference here. A clear offer sounds like, I help burned out nurses who are done with bedside care figure out what to do next so they can leave the floor without starting from scratch. Another example is, I help first year teachers survive their first year without quitting the profession they spent years preparing for. Another example is I help corporate women who've been laid off rebuild their professional identity and generate income from what they already know before their severance runs out. You hear the difference between those? The first set of descriptions could apply to literally lottie dottie and everybody, right? But those second set of examples, they speak directly to one specific person in one specific situation with one specific outcome that she's hoping for. And here's why this matters for revenue. It matters because people don't buy coaching. What do you mean by that, Nick Scott? What do you mean people don't buy coaching? Well, I'm glad that you asked. People don't buy coaching because people buy solutions to specific problems they're experiencing right now in the moment. And if your offer doesn't speak to a specific problem, a specific person is experiencing right now, she is not going to recognize that whatever it is that you're offering, that it's for her. Now, she might like your content. She might follow you on social media. She might even tell her friends about you, but she doesn't buy from you. And she doesn't buy from you because your offer didn't make her feel seen in the way that produces a yes. The clarity problem also shows up in how coaches talk about their work in real time. Because the clarity problem, it shows up in sales conversations, it shows up on discovery calls, it shows up in response to the question that every prospective client eventually asks. And that question is, what is it exactly that you do? And if the answer to that question takes more than two sentences and leaves the other person with more questions than she started with, then your offer isn't clear enough yet. And it isn't because you don't know what you do, because you clearly know what you do, but it's likely because you haven't found the language that makes what you do immediately recognizable as something that your prospective client needs. Does that make sense? Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Because here's the thing about offer clarity, it doesn't come from thinking harder about your offer in isolation or in a silo. It comes from having real conversations with real people who have the problem you solve, and it comes from listening to how they describe it. The language that makes your offer resonate is most always their language and not yours. Almost always their language and not yours. So when your offer is clear enough to sell, something very specific happens, y'all. The right person hears it, and she's going to say and respond in one of two ways. Either she's going to say, that's exactly what I need, or she's going to say, that's exactly what my friend needs. Let me send her your information. And both of those responses, guess what they do? They produce revenue. And both of those responses require an offer that is specific enough to create that immediate recognition. So, the fact of the matter is, most offers are not there yet. And it isn't because the coach who created these offers isn't skilled. It's usually because the coach hasn't done the clarity work that produces that level of specificity. And clarity work is not something you can rush through. It is something you have to do deliberately, and you have to take your time with it. And once you do the necessary clarity work, everything changes. Everything changes. So that is the very first revenue blocker. And one reason why your coaching business isn't making any money yet, and that is your offer just simply isn't clear enough. You're really, really, really good at saying what you do, but you're not so clear on what it is that you offer. So, are you ready for the second blocker? The second blocker is the one that's most directly tied to income. And that is the price doesn't reflect the value. And we talked about pricing Wednesday last week, and I want to go a little deeper today because I think there's a specific dimension of the pricing problem that just doesn't get enough attention. And it's not just the fact that a lot of new coaches, many new coaches, every single one of my client when I started working with her, they undercharge. So it's not just the fact that everyone new in this space undercharges. I undercharged when I came into this space, but it's the why they undercharge. And until we start to understand the why, charging the number doesn't, or changing the number doesn't fix the problem. We have to understand why before we can truly fix the problem. And here's what I mean by that. Most coaches set their price by looking outward. They look at what other coaches are charging at my experience level or not even at my experience level, right? They look at what I think my prospective clients can afford without even really knowing everybody's bank account. They think of external factors like what number feels safe enough that I won't get too many rejections and too many no's. What is that number? Because that's the number that I want to charge, and it's always too low. And those questions always produce a price that is anchored in comparison, assumption, and fear. Comparison, assumption, and fear. You're comparing yourself to other coaches who may or may not be at your experience level. You're making an assumption about what your prospective clients can afford. And then you're fearful about being rejected or getting no's. And none of those have anything to do with value. That is not values based pricing. Value based pricing asks a completely different question, y'all. And that question is, what is the transformation I deliver? What is it truly worth to the person who's receiving it? And that question requires you to understand not just what you do, but what changes for your client as a result of what you do. Now, let me say that one more time, because value based pricing is one of the most challenging aspects of pricing your offer because it has so much to do with your mindset and your belief. So, the question you need to be asking yourself when you're pricing your offer is, what is the transformation you deliver? What is it truly worth to the person who's receiving it? And if you're taking notes, I want you to write this question down and personalize it and actually go back and answer it later on today or tomorrow. And that question I want you to write down is, what is the transformation I deliver truly worth to the person who's receiving it? Because that question, it's going to require you to understand not just what you do, but what changes for your client as a result of the work that you do. So let me give you an example of what this might look like in the real world. If you're a coach who helps nurses navigate the transition outside of bedside care into a non-clinical role, what is that worth? To the person who hires that coach, who is currently a bedside nurse, and now she's navigating or she wants to transition into a non-clinical role. What is it worth to that person? And the surface answer is it really depends on what you charge, right? But if we think about it just a little more deeply, the real answer is it depends on what staying in a role that's destroying her is costing her. If she's burned out, if she's dreading every single shift she has to go into work, if she's watching her health deteriorate because she's always stressed out and tired, if she's thinking about leaving nursing entirely because she doesn't know there's another path, the cost of that situation is huge, right? And it's not just financially huge, but it's professionally huge, it's emotionally huge, and it's physically huge. And the coaching that shows her another path, that helps her identify her transferable skills and walks her through the transition to a role that fits her life, how much is that coaching worth? How much is that coaching worth? To you, what do you think it is? Just drop a number in the chat if you're watching live or in the comments if you're watching the replay. How much is that coaching worth? That coaching is worth significantly more than most coaches are currently charging for it. And here's where coaches get stuck though. And it's in the knowing your coaching is valuable and being able to say the price out loud without your voice changing. Those are two different things. So you can write the number on paper. My coaching is worth $2,000 per client. You can write the number on paper, but what happens when you say it out loud? Does your voice change? My coaching is worth $2,000 per client. Can you confidently say it? Because those are two different things. And the gap between those two things is almost always a belief problem, not a pricing problem. Remember, I said that this value-based coaching, I said it just a few minutes ago. This is probably the most challenging part of pricing your offer and truly understanding why your coaching business isn't making any money yet, because it's really grounded and rooted in the beliefs that you have about yourself, your relationship that you have with money, and also your mindset that you have around your offer and the value that you can actually bring to the table. So the gap between being able to write the number on a piece of paper and actually say it out loud without your voice changing, those are two different things. And the gap between them is almost always a belief problem, not a pricing problem. And the belief underneath most underpriced offers is some version of these three questions. And those questions are, who am I to charge that much? What if they say no? What if I charge more and then I can't actually deliver on the thing that I'm saying that I'm going to deliver? What if people think I'm greedy? What if I'm not worth it? And those questions are not pricing questions, those are identity questions. And those identity questions, they're all rooted in the same permission problem that we talked about on Monday. If you missed Monday's Nick at Noon, go back and watch the replay because we dug deep into the permission problem. And the belief that someone or something external needs to confirm your value before you're allowed to name it. And here's what I know about pricing confidence. Here's what I have learned about pricing confidence working with the dozens and dozens of clients that I have worked with. It doesn't come before you say the number. It comes from saying the number and not backing down from the number. It comes from The first time someone says yes at a price you were afraid to say, that first yes you get, guess what happens to your confidence? Because every time you hear a yes, every time you say your number and you don't back down from it, that compounds every single time. Now, the other dimension of the pricing problem I want to get into today is sustainability, because undercharging doesn't just hurt your income. I mean, that's the obvious part, right? But it also hurts your clients. And here's what I mean by that. When you're charging a rate that doesn't reflect the value you deliver, you have to take on more clients to generate a livable income or to hit your income goals. So, more clients means less time and energy that you have per client. Less time and energy you have per client means they're probably getting worse results. And if your clients are getting worse results, that means fewer referrals and fewer testimonials. Fewer referrals and fewer testimonials means slower growth for you because you don't have that social proof. And slower growth means more pressure to take on even more clients at the same underpriced rate. And that cycle continues. You see how it's a ripple effect? Underpriced offer results in all of those things that I just said. And then it's just a vicious cycle that goes round and round and round. And guess what? You find yourself burnt out. You find yourself overwhelmed. You find yourself hustling for every client. And I want you to listen to me when I say this. Sustainable pricing isn't about charging as much as possible. It's not about charging as much as possible. Sustainable pricing is about charging enough to show up fully. It allows you to show up fully for every single client you work with. Sustainable pricing is about having the margin to do your best work, to show up as your best self for your brand, for your business, for your clients, for your family. And that number is almost always higher than the number most coaches start with. As a matter of fact, 100% of the clients that I have had, they all underpriced their offers. I told you a story last week or 2 weeks ago about my client, Miss J, and how we raised her prices 3 times working together. And the reason that we raised her prices 3 times is because she wasn't comfortable just going to the third number off the bat. So we had to work through some of this value-based pricing work to get her to the number that actually reflected the transformation that she was taking her clients through. Okay. So we've gone through 2 of these revenue blockers so far. Hello, hello, hello. It's me, Mrs. Doe. Thanks for joining. Yes, be sure to catch that replay. So she says she thinks she's challenged with pricing something that's not tangible like a product, especially if the result relies on the client's effort. We can talk about that one right there, Miss Doe. Like, we can talk about that because it is somewhat based on the client's effort, right? I would imagine that, and we're going to get back to these other revenue blockers. The first one was clarity, the second one was pricing. But just real quick on this conversation, most of us are working with other adults in our coaching businesses, right? And it's not our job as a coach to take notes or to force people to show up to their calls, right? It's our job to lay out the framework, to give the guidance, to give the templates, to give the deliverables. It's not up to us to do the work for them. And that's one thing that I would say needs to be very, very crystal clear in your messaging is that this is who this program is for, and this is who this program is not for. And so your marketing and your messaging, it should literally attract your ready to buy clients and repel people who are not in your ecosystem. So it is tough to do that. And I would say this value-based pricing, understanding what that transformation is. Let's say that you're a career coach and you help a woman snag or land a position where she's making 40, $50,000 more a year. How much is that worth to the woman who's making 40 or $50,000 more a year because you coached her to do that? How much is that worth? It's worth more than $500, $1,000. I don't know. How much would it be worth to you? And so that's what we're really talking about when it comes to value-based pricing. You're selling your intellectual property. And I would argue that that is a product. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So we already talked about two revenue blockers, right? We talked about clarity and we talked about pricing. And those are two reasons why your coaching business isn't making any money. And I want to get into this third revenue blocker because this is the one that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about this. And that is the selling isn't happening. Like you're not selling. That is the third revenue blocker. Selling isn't happening because the coach doesn't have something worth selling. The selling isn't happening because the market doesn't want it, but the selling isn't happening because the coach isn't actually selling it. You have the thing, you have the clarity, and maybe you even priced it at what it should be, but now you're not selling it. And let me be specific about what I mean by selling, because I think there's a version of this conversation right here that sounds like I'm trying to tell you to be pushy, and I'm not. I don't want you to be a pushy salesperson. I'm not a pushy salesperson. I don't teach my clients to be pushy, because selling in the context of a coaching business, it is the act of making a specific offer to a specific person and inviting them to say yes or no. And selling in the context of a coaching business is not manipulation. So I'm not saying that. Selling in the context of this space, it's not pressure, and it's not a script designed to break down someone's resistance. Like, I have been in some wild sales conversations with other coaches and other coaching programs because, I'm a coach who hires coaches. I have been in some crazy sales conversations where they just try to pressure you to buy this product, like almost like I'm on a used car lot. Like I'm getting to the point where I can sense it from a mile away. And if I feel like this coach's program or this coach specifically is going to deploy some of those very sleazy sales tactics on a sales call, I'll cancel the meeting because I can see it in the messaging and the email follow-ups. So for me, and what I believe, selling in the context of a coaching business, it is not pressure and it is not a script that's designed to break down someone's resistance. It is not being pushy. Selling in the context of a coaching business, and this is what I believe it is clear, honest, and direct communication that says, I have something that can help you. Here's what it is. Here's what it costs. And I'd love for you to be my client. That's what it means to me. And most coaches, they're not doing that. Instead, what they're doing, if they're not being pushy, they're doing what I call invisible selling. And what do I mean by that? Well, they're creating content and hoping the right person will eventually find their content, understand what they offer, know how to buy it, and make the decision entirely on their own without any direct interaction with you. And I'm going to be honest here, that approach eventually works for some people in some markets. And if they have a large enough audience and enough time for this to actually work. But for the coach who's building in the early stages with a small platform and a real income goal, invisible selling is the longest possible path to revenue. The fastest path to get to the money in a coaching business is a direct conversation that ends with a direct offer. It's not a nurture sequence. It's not a freebie funnel. It's not a webinar that pitches at the end. And I know these are all strategies and tactics that you hear you need to be doing in your business. And I'm not saying that these don't work. I'm saying that these don't work for the coach who is building in the early stages with a small platform and a real income goal. What works is a conversation, a one-on-one conversation between you and one person who has the problem you solve. I'm talking about a conversation where you listen to what they're struggling with and you explain what you do and how what you do addresses precisely that struggle. I'm talking about a conversation where you tell them what it costs and you ask if they want to work with you. Now, I want to talk about why coaches avoid doing this thing right here, the conversation, the direct reach out, the one-on-one conversation, because I don't believe that it's because coaches are lazy. I truly believe it's fear, and I truly believe it's specifically fear of rejection, which is human nature. So I'm not, when I first started in this business, I am not a salesperson. In fact, I am extremely highly introverted, right? Doing these Monday through Friday lives, I have to ask myself every week, I'm like, whose idea was it to do this? I'm extremely introverted and I'm not a salesperson. I really don't like talking to people that much, honestly. Don't call me on the phone, text me. I'm that type of person, right? And so when I first got into this space and I realized that I had to actually talk to people, the coach that I hired when I first got into this space, she's very big on direct contact and direct outreach and having conversations. And she's very good at training you how to get to the money real quick. I was terrified. I was terrified because, well, what if I say the wrong thing? What if they don't like me? What if? But really what underneath all of that, I was afraid of the rejection. Like, who wants to be told no over and over and over and over again? Right? But when you put your offer into the world through content, rejection is abstract. Like, you don't know how many people saw your content or your offer, and you don't know how many people actually said no. You never experience that rejection, that no directly. And that's why content marketing in this space feels so comfortable. It feels so good. It feels like you're being productive. It feels like, oh my gosh, I've been a coach for 2 years creating content consistently, right? But I haven't really made any sales. I haven't had $100,000 launch yet. It's because you're keeping yourself in a comfortable space. And when you make a direct offer to a real person, the rejection is concrete. The rejection is concrete. You literally hear the no and and you feel it. You literally hear when they say not right now or I need to think about it. And you feel that. And for the women who have spent their careers being the person who gets things right, the experience of a direct no is incredible. incredibly uncomfortable. Incredibly uncomfortable. For some people, it's highly motivating, right? They're like, who you think you telling no, right? Um, but here's what I know about hearing the word no. Every no you hear, it gets you closer to the yes. And that's where I had to resolve. This is a numbers game, y'all. This is a data game. And every no you hear, it teaches you something about how to position your offer better, who to target your conversations toward, and what objections you need to address more clearly. Every no you hear is a data point, and data points are what make your business better. It's data. The coaches who are generating consistent income are definitely not the ones who never hear no. They probably just hear it more often. They're the ones who have heard enough no's that the no's stopped feeling personal. That's the point I've had to grow to, and I've had to earn my way to. And the ones who are generating consistent income in this space, they're the ones who understand that a no is what? Just a data point. If you are taking notes, I want you to jot that down because that is so important when it comes to rejection. We're taught in our lives that rejection is a bad thing. And when it comes to your business, whether it's a coaching business or any other type of business, if you're a real estate agent, whatever it is that you do, no is part of the process and it's not a bad thing. So if we can just normalize hearing no within the scope of our businesses, it's not a bad thing. It's a data point, and data is good for business. So, I also want to say something about this third revenue blocker selling that I think is particularly important for professional women. And that is selling your coaching is not the same as selling yourself. And that distinction in this business, it matters because my experience has taught me a lot of women feel like asking someone to pay for their coaching is asking that person to evaluate their worth as a human being. And when you frame it that way, every no feels like a verdict. I just said we have been trained to believe and conditioned to believe that the word no is a bad word. And it can be a bad word, right? But in the context of our business, it's not a bad word. It's not a verdict. So here's the reframe that I want you to make. When you make a coaching offer, you're not asking anybody to evaluate you. You're giving someone the opportunity, period. You're giving someone the opportunity to solve a problem they've been living with. You're helping somebody. You're helping somebody. You're offering access to something that can change the trajectory of somebody's career, somebody's income, somebody's relationship, somebody's professional identity, somebody's life, somebody's fitness. That's what you're doing. So you're not asking anybody to evaluate you. What you're asking them is, can I have the opportunity to help you, ma'am? And the fact of the matter is, some people are going to say yes to that, and some people are not going to say yes. And that's okay because neither of those responses are a reflection of your worth. Those responses are a reflection of where your potential client is in her journey and whether the timing is right for her. So, selling from that frame feels completely different than selling from fear, and it produces completely different results. It does. It produces completely different results. So, I just went through the three revenue blockers. I'm going to just take a moment. Okay, yes, yes. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for hopping on and giving me the opportunity to give you that feedback on pricing. Um, it's a data point. Yes, data. We need the data in order for our businesses to grow, in order for our businesses to scale, in order for our businesses to become sustainable. So, yes, I do. I challenge you on this day, today, whatever day you're watching this, I challenge you to think about rejection and the word no in the context of your business as a good thing and not something that's going to harm you and hurt you. It's going to take a minute. It's not going to happen overnight. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. It's not going to happen overnight. It really is a muscle that you will have to work. But the only way to work that muscle is to have those conversations, is to actually sell your offer and to experience it and take it as a data point. Now, I want to connect the three of these revenue blockers before I close because I think the connection between them is very important. So, we talked about offer clarity, we talked about pricing, and we talked about selling. And those are not separate problems. They may have sounded like separate problems, but they're three symptoms of the same root issue. And the root issue that most coaches haven't fully made the transition from is professional to entrepreneur. If you're a professional woman, whatever your profession is, and it's outside of entrepreneurship, that is the root issue because many times women are still applying the logic of employment to the context of building a business. So in employment, your value is confirmed by your employer. In entrepreneurship, you have to claim it yourself. You know who does this great in entrepreneurship? Hairstylists. Hairstylists are so good at this. They understand that I have to claim my value. They understand that if I don't charge $1,000 for these hair extensions, I'm not going to be able to do whatever the thing is that they want to do. They're great at it. And at the on the receiving end, listen, I've been getting my hair done for a long time. And when I started getting my hair done, I paid $25. And I understand inflation and all the things, right? And that was back when I used to get my hair relaxed. And when I would go in for my little, what did they call it? Like a wash and set or something like that. $25 is what I paid. Now, however many years later, that same wash and set, they don't call it a wash and set anymore. I don't know what they call it now. But that same wash and set, it's like $200. So hairstylists are exceptional at understanding that they are entrepreneurs and they're exceptional at claiming their own value. So here's another example. In employment, your price is set by a market rate that's determined by somebody else. But in entrepreneurship, you set it based on the value you deliver. In employment, business comes to you through your role. Like you really don't have to do anything, right? You just have work piled up on your desk. But in entrepreneurship, you have to go get it. Go get your blessing. The three revenue blockers we talked about today are all expressions of that incomplete transition. An unclear offer is what happens when you're still describing your skills in employment terms instead of entrepreneurial terms. And underpricing is what happens when you're still waiting for external confirmation, for something external to confirm your value. And then the invisible selling that I talked about, that's what happens when you're still expecting business to come to you through a system rather than through your own direct action. And the solution to all three of those is the same thing. deciding, making a decision that you're a business, that you're running a business, that you are a CEO. The solution is making a decision that your skills have value that you are allowed to claim. You don't need anybody else's permission to claim that. The decision is the solution is deciding that the people you're meant to serve, they deserve to hear directly from you, and they deserve to know and feel that you can help them. And then the solution is to then do the work that reflects those decisions. And that work is exactly what I'm building for in May. I'm building something that's going to take the most common and most paralyzing of these three blockers. We're going to solve it live in real time together. We're going to get clear on your offer. And I'm not quite ready to share all the details yet, but I do want you to know that it's coming. And if today's episode landed anywhere close to home for you, you're going to want to get on the wait list before registration opens. If you're watching on YouTube, the link for the wait list is in the description. And if you're not watching on YouTube, you can go right to my website at herincomeedit.com/workshop. Because let's be honest, your coaching business, if it isn't making money yet, now you know why. Because I know it's not because you're not good enough or because the market doesn't want what you have. Your coaching business isn't making money yet because one or more of these three revenue blockers is sitting between you and the income you're trying to build. It's either your offer isn't specific enough to make the right person feel immediately seen, or it's because the price doesn't reflect the real value of the transformation you deliver, or it's because the selling simply isn't happening in a direct enough way to produce a yes. And the good news is all three of these revenue blockers are fixable. None of them require you to get more credentials or more accolades or hustle for a bigger audience on social media, or it doesn't require you to have more time getting ready. It requires a decision and then the action that follows it. It requires a decision and the action that follows it. So I want you to come back tomorrow for Hot Takes Thursday, because I'm going to be saying something about the language you use to describe yourself and your business that's going to make some of you just a little uncomfortable. I am here Monday through Friday at noon Mountain Time. Set your reminders. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you know when I go live. If you haven't, if anything in this video resonated with you, let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. Share this video with a friend who might need it. Get on the wait list for what's coming in May. The link is in the description, or you can go to my website at herincomeedit.com/workshop. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your energy. And I will see you in the next one. I see the love. Bye.